Welcome everyone to the Wake Up Call channel. Since the scripted assassination of Donald Trump, which I've been talking about for a few years now, actually occurred, since that happened, what we're seeing is Donald Trump being put up on a pedestal like never before. He's becoming an even larger figure than he already has. And all of the things that have been done to Donald Trump, which of course are all scripted, none of it is real. The charade, sham of a trial that he's been going through, getting prosecuted for things that they've done deliberately, making him look very minuscule so that it looks like the government is going after him because they're afraid of him. Psychologically, all these things do is make people support him more. And the government knows this. By making him an enemy of the quote-unquote deep state, it makes people worship him more. But the majority of people out there who are viewing him as a larger-than-life figure are looking at Donald Trump as an idol. They are idol worshiping him. We're seeing it worse than ever before. And unfortunately, these are Christians, for the most part, who are putting him on a pedestal and idolizing him, but will not admit to idolizing him. Now, the definition of idolize is admire, revere, or love greatly or excessively. And the excessive amount of love and the comparisons between Trump and God are becoming frightening. And you would have thought that this event, this scripted event on Donald Trump's life, would have woke more people up, because we've all been warning about Trump and the deception over the years. This event was so poorly executed, and how they're handling it since then, where the media has flipped. The liberal media is kind of building him up as well, in a sense, and not going after him as much. And of course, how Trump just rebounded and went out to the Republican National Convention right after this occurred. You would have thought that people would start connecting the dots with how some kid who looked like he just came out of an institution was somehow able to outsmart the Secret Service, get on a roof, and not only fire one shot, fire 8 shots, supposedly. You would have thought that maybe people would look at that, the same people who look at the thing that happened on the 11th day of September and realize that the narrative isn't what we were actually fed, that it wasn't 2 planes that were able to go through steel, right? Because aluminum can't go through steel. Those people question that event. A lot of the conservatives question the validity of what we were told about that event. However, one of the worst psyops we've ever seen actually is acted out in real time on Donald Trump. They seem to not be able to see that. And that's because of the idol worshiping. Again, what we're seeing now with Trump, this is very much something that we've seen in the Bible, in Exodus 32, in 1 Kings chapter 12, right? This is becoming a modern day version of the golden calf. The golden calf in the Bible is looked at as an apostasy, the rejection of faith as once confessed, right? The figure was a cult image made by the Israelites when Moses went up to Mount Sinai. And much like then, we're seeing Donald Trump, and they're washing this away by trying to justify this stuff with Trump and their idol worship by one saying that they're not idolizing him, or idol worshiping is not going on, when these people actually seem more invested in Trump than they do in God, but they just won't admit that. But one of the things we need to look at when it comes to the golden calf is a lot of the similarities with gold and Donald Trump, including this recent image of Donald Trump with a golden ear, and this statue of Donald Trump that they're now carrying around to a lot of these events or a lot of these rallies that Donald Trump is speaking at. So let me start by saying the character of Donald Trump, we all obviously saw in the Illuminati card game, the charismatic leader, enough is enough. You may have heard Hulk Hogan, the speech that he gave. He even said enough is enough before he ripped his shirt off, referencing Donald Trump.
Enough was enough, and I said, let Trumpomania run wild, brother. Enough was enough.
And again, we can correlate Donald Trump with gold as well, right? Everybody has seen the pictures of Donald Trump's penthouse, which is literally made of gold. Gold thrones, gold toilets, gold everything. Donald Trump is associated with money and gold and riches, right? So a lot of our fellow brothers and sisters in Christ who are following the alt-right media are obsessing, not realizing that basic mind control to make somebody into an idol, the best way to do that would be to portray him as somebody who's under attack from wicked people, wicked beings, right? Hence the narrative that we see with Trump, the deep state. These people that we know are involved in some of the most disgusting, disturbing acts that we couldn't possibly comprehend involving children, right? Even though these people don't realize they're so blinded by this idol that all of this stuff that they've been fed from QAnon about Epstein, which is a government psyop, not to say that Epstein isn't involved in that stuff. Of course he was, and all of these people were, but they fed them that narrative. And at the same time, there's thousands of photos of Donald Trump with Jeffrey Epstein. But because they're under such idol worship, they dismiss those photos, and they're more concerned about a list and who's on a list, but they automatically exclude Trump from that list. They will not wake up, and even when a fake assassination attempt, which will only garner more support for him, occurs, their idol worship gets worse. So let me just show you some of the stuff that's out there. It'll blow your mind. Okay, Benny Johnson, I've mentioned him a lot recently because this is one of the alt-right plants that they've put out there, who for some reason he always gets put into my feeds. So I always see that this guy just, if you could look, I mean, every video, every few hours, which is rare for a lot of these alt-right guys to make so much content. He puts out a lot of content of him just talking about Donald Trump. And of course it gets a ton of views because these people are under hypnotism. So he's pandering to them, but he's also there by design. He's not censored, right? He's there promoted. That's why a lot of us are seeing him in our feeds. Look at some of the stuff that this guy is promoting to his audience. And like, when we talk about idol worship, this is where it comes from. It's getting fed to them subconsciously without them even realizing it. Look at some of this stuff. Trump upgrade when the bandage comes off. I'm voting for golden ear. That photograph that you've seen in this video of Trump with the golden ear, right? How about this one? A painting of God stopping the bullet from hitting Trump. And he says, you know it's true, right? The statue that they're now talking about. People out there asking for a statue of this staged photograph to be made and put outside in Washington, D.C. That's a new national monument. He says, I would visit every year. That's sick. I mean, in a lot of different ways, that's warped and sick, right? Other paintings of Donald Trump that have come out so fast. I would hang this in my house so fast, wouldn't you? And Donald Trump posing in front of these people just can't get past the fact that this is scripted. We see this recently, this new golden idol statue of Donald Trump. Look at these people bowing and taking pictures with it. But they'll tell you that this isn't idol worship. They literally have their own version of the golden calf here with Donald Trump. And they still can't see it, right? Now, when I talked about why that picture was so important, in all my videos that I've done on Trump since that event occurred, I talked about how the picture was more important than the event itself, and that all people would remember is the pictures that came out of it. The picture now that you see over and over again of him holding up his communist fist in the air underneath an American flag, and of course screaming, fight, fight, fight. But before he said fight, 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 he said wait, 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 so he could take that photo, right? Obviously, if you think, which most people don't, about an actual assassination attempt on your life, that would not be the way that any human being would react to it, unless, of course, it was part of a scripted show. You'd only see acting like that if you were actually at a live play, which is what people were at, right? And the importance of that picture goes back to a famous quote. The eye is the window of the soul, right? The eyes are the window to the soul. Everybody's heard that. Well, why? Well, think about if the eyes are the window to the soul, if you could deceive people's eyes, what that could do potentially to your soul. Right? In other words, if they're able to, and Satan is able to manipulate your eyes with lies and deception, well, then what's going to happen to your soul? Well, it's going to be corrupted. It's going to be, in a sense, manipulated, right? And the photograph of Trump, which again, another thing that came out of this, is the guy who actually took the photograph of Donald Trump. If I didn't mention it before, let me mention it now. This famous photograph of him was taken by a guy who goes by the name of Doug Mills, right? He's also the guy who captured, quote unquote, captured, AKA edited and manipulated a photo to make it look like they actually caught a bullet whizzing by his ear, which is laughable that people think that's a real photo. But when you're under deception and mind control, it's very easy to be deceived, especially when you're in the midst of idol worshiping, which these people are, and they refuse to believe it. In fact, the blinders are so on, you could show them. Donald Trump could come out tomorrow and tell them that he's working for the devil, that he's an antichrist or the antichrist, and these people would laugh it off and dismiss it because the idolizing that they're doing is so thick, it is fogging their minds. It's fogging their perception of reality. Thus, that saying that I just said about your eyes being the window of your soul. So this is the guy who took the supposed photographs, right? No coincidence here whatsoever, by the way. Of course, he's just in the right place at the right time. And even if this guy was hired by the White House, which is in his credentials, the New York Times, etc., this guy is the one who took the photograph. Doug Mills is his name. Doug Mills took these iconic pictures, right? And what else did Doug Mills conveniently be in the right place at the right time for when it comes to iconic pictures? Well, Doug Mills was in the classroom, if you didn't know, on the day that those two buildings got hit, and George Bush was reading a book called The Pet Goat, and the teacher was telling the kids in the classroom, because this is how magic works, the teacher had the children reciting, "Kite, hit, steal, plane, must," right before or as this event was occurring, right? So he just happened to be the photographer for that famous photo that everybody has seen of George Bush, where a man is whispering into his ear. Now, why would they ever send this photographer down there, or any photographer really, for an event like this, where George Bush is reading to children, right? And then, of course, since then, you would think that this guy was such a prominent photographer that he'd be doing more important things than going to a Trump rally in Pennsylvania, a very small rally. So they strategically picked him to take these photographs, kind of like they strategically always use certain photographers like Terry Richardson to take all of these strange photographs of celebrities where they're holding a 666 up over their eye, right? They always have their photographers in place. So I'm sure that's just a coincidence too, just like Hogan ripping off his shirt with "enough is enough." The entire narrative that is out there is laughable. It's laughable. And for these people to claim to be awake and still be stuck in the left-right paradigm and to not even realize what idolizing and idol worship is, the problem is that they don't realize that these celebrities are the modern day idols, right? They're the modern day idols, and they actually admit to that. You'll hear interviews with some of them where they admit to that, being modern day Egyptian gods, all that stuff I've covered over the years, right? Most of these Christians are so dumbed down by what their churches are preaching, which is all pro-Trump, that they think an idol actually means like that gold statue I showed you of Donald Trump. But these are real life idols. The television has created real life idols. You wouldn't know who these people were if you weren't under the hypnosis of the television. And thus we've seen what idol worship has become over the past few decades, specifically since the 2000s, since the internet has come out, how much more enhanced this idol worship has become. It's like everybody in there, every single one of these celebrities, there's so many of them now, and there's people out there who worship the ground that they walk on. They could do no wrong. They defend them till their death, and that's what Donald Trump is, and these people do not want to believe it. So the alt-right media is obviously part of the problem here, because they're the ones who are feeding this to their audience, right? This deep state narrative. These people can't seem to grasp the fact that he's a part of the deep state. This golden ear now, this new narrative, and they can't correlate how they're talking about Trump with a golden ear, how it is very eerily similar, obviously deliberately, to the Bible and the golden calf. And of course, we know about Donald Trump and his affiliation with money and gold. But the churches won't talk about this stuff. The churches want you to see this. Why? Because all the gaslighting about the Democrats and the stuff that they've been doing, which the government, who you have to look at it from this perspective, because everybody out there thinks that the CIA and all this stuff is happening organically. And then Christians want to say, oh, well, they don't really know what they're doing. The government, they're just trying to push this on everyone. They're psychologically manipulating everyone on both sides. All this stuff that they've done with the trans and the schools, they knew what the reaction was going to be. They knew that the majority of people were not going to accept that and be okay with it. And that has led to what? That has helped enhance this Trump worship. That has helped Christians fall more into it, and ministers and preachers, because Trump, they think, will stop it from occurring. Instead of civilians saying, look, this has nothing to do with what the government is supposed to be doing. You're not supposed to be doing this stuff. In fact, you're supposed to be working for us. They don't think like that. And of course, they've been trained not to talk like that either. That's an act of terrorism to say that the government's not working for you, that the government could be in cahoots with one another, working together, right? That's an extreme thing to say in today's society, which is insane. The civilians should obviously be all on the same page, looking at all of the gaslighting and all of the manipulation that's going on, and we all should be coming together. But obviously, this event was done deliberately to get people more unhinged about Trump, to get them to worship him more, because the more you do this to him, and we've seen that with the, going all the way back, right, to the documents. Donald Trump had the documents at Mar-a-Lago. Joe Biden had documents, right? Joe Biden gets, he's dismissed. And then they were prosecuting Trump up until after the fake assassination attempt where they dismissed the case. But they were showing you this whole rules for thee, not for me kind of a narrative, which these people just keep buying into because of the hypnosis that they're under, because they keep watching this stuff like it's real. And that's why I use that quote. The eye is the windows of the soul. Well, if they can manipulate your eyes, which is what the television does, right? If your eyes are watching the television and you're told that that's what's happening in the world and it's scripted, well, then your eyes are being manipulated and your soul is being manipulated. And they're telling you that this stuff is real when it's scripted and staged, thus to manipulate your perception of reality, which is what the news is there to do. So it's frightening to see that Donald Trump is now being, they're even doing stuff like this. This is the past couple days, upgrading his ear to a golden ear, that statue that I'm showing you. The fact that they want to put up a statue in DC for him with this stage photograph. The stage photo in itself should be enough for people to wake up. That when you use your brain and you actually say, wow, imagine somebody shot your ear, what you'd be going through, what you'd be thinking. But instead you yell to the crowd because you care about the crowd that's there and you don't want them to give up, right? And you also yell, wait, 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 so you can get this photograph that you know is going to be able to manipulate people more and more and more. It's going to be a photo we never forget, right? A staged photo that's going to be the picture that leads about and brings about a new world order. I thank everybody for being here. Hope you're all doing well. God bless you and your families, as always.